first National Trans Visibility March took place on September 28, 2019 in Washington, D.C. With over 5,300 attendees, this historic event brought together both transgender individuals and allies from all over the United States.
We are tired of fighting for our country on foreign soil and then being told that we are no longer fit to serve. We are tired of our murders going without any justice and our murderers out there free. We want to be free, and that's why we are here.
I want you to repeat after me. I am here. I am here. Yes, ma'am.
We need to take back our narrative. We are not victims. We are not statistics. We are not tragedies. We are waiting to thrive, and this is our best year yet, because we aren't here simply to be visible. We are here to be victorious. So when we move forward today, let us press forward with purpose, let us press forward with passion, and let us know that the fight has just begun.
Hello, welcome. My name is Colleen, and I am definitely an addict. I am an addict in recovery, but nonetheless, I'm an addict. And, the day I forget that is the day I'm doomed to repeat the history of my addiction. I just want to say welcome to everybody that's here. And today we're actually can everybody hear me? Okay, I'm getting some funky stuff up here on my screen. Actually, before I get into detail with what it is that we're going to be talking about, I'd just like to give the panel a chance to introduce themselves, starting in the order in which you guys are seeing yourself on the screen, if you will.
Hello, my name is Regina Livingston, sometimes known as Natalia Dupree. I am the founder and president of Unspoken Treasure Society, and I am also a recovering addict.
You guys? Can you guys hear me?
Angela, introduce yourself. You're on mute. Mulan, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I am Mulan Williams. I am the outreach coordinator for Miracle of Love, as well as the founder of Divas in Dialogue here in Orlando, Florida. And I have been clean now for 17 years.
Hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Angela Zanaya Hunt, and I am a peer mentor, a health educator here at Hope and Help in Orange County. And I am also a recovering addict, and I am going on 3 years.
Introduce yourself, Dora.
Hello, I am Dora. I am a recovering addict. It's a struggle every day, but I'm learning more about myself and what would keep me from falling. It's hard, but it's worth it.
And once again, my name is Kaleem, and I'm definitely an addict. I participate a lot in my community regarding addiction and ways and means to seek recovery. Um, I do have a few questions that I just kind of wanted to start out with, just to give the public, those that are viewing, just an idea as to, what it's like, or could I be an addict? Because I know for a long time I was in a tremendous state of denial regarding my addiction and its true nature. So I'm hoping that with these questions, maybe we can pull on some heartstrings and pull on some, mental capacities of those out there that may be watching that might actually have. So I'm just going to open the floor to whomever might feel comfortable with answering this question, preferably all of you. If you could just answer these questions, and we're kind of on a time crunch. So, part of sharing the message of recovery is also sharing time. So let's just keep that in mind. So I want to pose the question of what led to your drug usage. We'll start with you, Angela.
So, hello. Once again, my name is Angela Zanaya Hunt. I am a health educator here in Orange County. I work for Hope and Help. Um, what led my drug use? For me, after so many years of really going through this experience and really kind of going over some of the stuff that I went through with some of the traumas and experiences that I've had, I feel today, I feel like the one thing that led me to my drug use was me not feeling completely loved. I was a child who was put in foster care at a young age. Um, the only child out of six who was actually given away and adopted. Um, so, that abandonment that I felt from the beginning, and me not even knowing who my father is. To this day, I still don't know who my father is, and I'm 41 years old. Um, so I think mine kind of started from there. The abandonment that I experienced as I was growing up and being sent from one family member to the next family member, and then finally all those family members saying, we can't handle you. So that resulted in me being in foster care. So I think growing up with all of that on my mind as I get older and starting to realize and figure things out, and finally using something, having that first experience with using drugs, and then making it be my coping mechanism, coming to the conclusion that, hey, this is what's going to fill that void. This is what's going to
Absolutely.
replace all that I lost before. So I think I think that was the main thing that kind of took me to that path of being being active in addiction.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Um, I know it's been a while, but like, what were some of the risky behaviors that you may have practiced throughout your journey of addiction, and did you still practice them um, once you got clean? Like, getting clean, like I still found myself struggling with the same character defects as I did while I was using. So, what are some of the risky behaviors that you may have took part in throughout your journey?
So for me, some of the risky behaviors that I took part of is that when I was in my zone, and when I was in my zone, I no longer cared about what anybody else thought. I no longer cared about what was right to do and what was not right to do. I can sit in front of a class and have my teacher say, "Hey, safe sex is the key. Use a condom, use this, use that." But then when I was in my zone of action, active addiction, like I didn't think about all of that. I didn't care about all of that. All I wanted to do was be in my zone and feel like I was okay doing whatever it is I wanted to do. And sometimes being in that zone caused me not to think about, the repercussions of, if I did this, had unprotected sex, this could happen. I knew it could happen, but I didn't think about it. It became something that I no longer did. It wasn't the main thought. I felt like if I was to turn around and say, hey, stop what we're doing now and put on a condom, it was going to ruin the whole thing. And that person then was going to walk out and abandon me and leave me once again alone.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm sorry, I'm just experiencing a bit of identification with you, definitely. Okay. Milan, hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well, all things considered. I'm going to pose the same questions to you. The first question was, what were some of the risky behaviors that you displayed during your journey of addiction?
The risky behaviors for me, well, before I even became an addict, I was already a sex worker. But once I started getting high and doing sex work, like Angela said, your vision would be impaired. Sometimes you would do things you wouldn't normally do when you were sober. So that was for me. Also, it made me feel invincible. So I was taking risks with pickpocketing and things like that. I'm 6'4", and I would be out there. I would pickpocket someone, and then I would go home and change my wig as if I'm this totally different person. Going right back out there trying to get more money. So yeah, it messed up my vision a lot.
Yeah.
Versus when I was sober.
And I'm laughing with you, not at you, because
right.
We in addiction we reduce ourselves to animalistic behaviors just to get one more. So
yes, and I'm not gonna lie, those drugs make me very horny.
Listen. Definitely. They became the motivating factor, actually.
Yes,
for me.
exactly.
Definitely. The other question was, what was the motivation for you to get off of drugs? Like, what was that aha moment where you was just like, enough is enough?
Prison. I tell my friends now, prison was the worst and also the best thing that ever happened to me. It was the worst because I lost my drag daughter, which was my best friend, while I was in there, which sent me into a depression. But it also was the time I had to talk to myself, and being in prison for me, I can't express how horrible it was for me. Some days were good, some days were bad, but just the emotional state of being in there and away from people and not being the same person you once were. I made a decision while I was in prison that drugs were going to be out the question. Hard drugs anyway, because I still smoke my weed, I'm just keeping it real. But I knew I wasn't going back to coke and doing ecstasy pills when I got out. And I told myself that every day. I was like, girl, you're going to end right back up in here, because when you get on that shit, you go crazy. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it was prison. Prison alone. Prison let me know that that was something I didn't want to. I wanted to change my life. I wanted to change my life. So I made the decision to step away from doing shows when I got out. Staying away from the club scene, because the clubs were a big part of my addiction. That fed my addiction times 10. So I knew I had to stay away from the club for a while until I was strong enough. And I'm gonna say about 6 years ago. That's why I say you never can say you'll never do something again, because I was in the club scene and I wasn't having a good time, because it's not my scene anymore. So, but I seen a couple of my girlfriends kept going to the bathroom, so I knew what the tea was. I knew what was up, and I fell short. I went in and I asked for a bump. I'm like, girl, give me a bump, and she knew my story, and she just looked at me like, girl, I don't have anything. I don't have nothing. I immediately went home because I cried and everything, because I knew if she would have gave me a bump, everything would have started all the way back over. And all those years clean would have been messed up for that one night.
Right.
So it was really
You want to
prison.
talk about saving graces. That's a true friend. That is a
Yes.
true friend. Tiami, I think I'm saying her name right. Apparently, she was feeling a bit of that identification because she commented that she was on her way to prison too in the midst of her addiction. So, we're never alone. We're never alone in this process.
Right.
Um, so I'm going to pose the same questions to you, Dora. First of all, let me say we love you and we need you. You don't ever have to get high again, even when you want to. You don't have to. And there's great freedom in that. There is great freedom in that. And, it's going to be all right. All you got to do is keep trying. We all fall short, but just keep trying. But I'm gonna pose the same questions to you, sweetheart. I want to ask you, like, what are some of the risky behaviors that you have displayed in the midst of your addiction, if you feel comfortable enough to share? I can't hear you. I think you gotta unmute yourself. Mm-mm. If you look at the bottom of your screen, it says mic. Hit that. You gotta tap it again. I think you say something.
Hello?
There you go. I lost you. I see you, but I can't hear you.
She may have to turn the camera off and just speak.
Hitting. You might have to leave your camera off. Say something. There you go.
Hello?
I can hear you.
You can hear me? Okay, great. Well, risky behaviors for me in the journey of doing drugs was like prostitution, because you feel like it's quick money and you can get what you need, what you think you need.
Right.
And yeah. So what was the other questions?
That's okay. What is the motivating factor that makes you want to change your way of life? What's the motivating factor that is pushing you toward recovering and toward, letting go of those risky behaviors and living life the way you deserve to?
Mine is finally really loving myself. And that's what I wasn't doing. And my mama Natalia, she told me this like maybe 4 years ago. Like she's like, Dora, you just don't love yourself. And I thought I loved myself. I thought that's what, but I learned that when you love yourself, you don't let nobody hurt you or you don't hurt yourself. And that's what I was doing with the drugs. And plus, I didn't like the look because I was always try to be like a image person, a person with a good image. And I didn't like what people saw, even though they say that you shouldn't care what people think about you. But I actually did care that people thought bad stuff about me because, everybody that do everything is not like alike. So that's what motivates me is that I want to make people proud. And I'm seeing like backing away from it, how many doors is opening for me and how many more, good things is happening for me right now. So
Absolutely.
that's what motivates me.
Absolutely. And you just keep on keeping on and you'll see. You'll see. God got more for you. So, Virginia, don't take you off the hook, Sunshine Superstar. I got the same questions for you. The first one, I just want to repeat them so that the audience knows. What led to your drug usage?
Sometimes I feel some type of way to admit it, but my drug usage, I was led to trying drugs because I had a huge crush on a young man. And when me and him were alone and we were intimate, he asked me, did I do cocaine? And I said, yes. Had never done that before in my life. And so I took my first bump. And that first bump was the beginning to my life spinning completely out of control. It was a time when some friends of mine came in, very good friends of mine, family, my gay mother, my ex-boyfriend, and some family friends, my gay mother, Nisha Dupree. They all sat me down at the round table, and they tried to do a prevention. They tried to do an intervention. And I explained to them that I was rich and there was nothing wrong with my little small drug addiction. And I felt that it was okay. But a few years later, when I was homeless, when I was living from hotel to hotel, when I was running around aimlessly scamming and I had to get up in the morning and didn't know where my breakfast was coming from, I started realizing I had a really serious problem. I had a very serious problem.
Absolutely. I just wanted to read out loud what Araya Lester's saying. She's saying, yes, ladies, drugs and incarceration are inherently tied to trans survival in today's world. Harm restriction is key. Definitely. Definitely.
And that's
Thanks for your comment.
That's definitely something that I've dealt with. I've done about 3 bids, and the last one was kind of like Milan. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't do it anymore. It was no longer okay. You know, my aunt died while I was incarcerated the last time. And my aunt happens to be my best friend. My aunt happens to be someone who has always been my confidant. So that actually almost took me out of here. I was so depressed. I was so emotional. And by God be the glory, I actually had some associates while I was in prison that could actually kind of hold me together. They read the Bible to me, and they kind of mended me back together because I was in pieces when I found out that she had died. So when I got out, I still had my trials and tribulations. It didn't happen overnight, but I knew that I had to fight. And so my fight began.
Absolutely.
And I'm sitting here today, 5 years clean, 6 years. I'm sitting here today, 6 years clean of cocaine.
Come on now. All that time counts. You better tighten up. Get it right. Tyree Williams wants to thank all of you ladies for having the courage to make yourselves vulnerable and share your story. Thank you for appreciating the value of that, Tyree. Real quick, I do want to ask you, like, even though you already kind of told us you answered both questions, actually. You did. You answered both questions. I personally want to say thank you to you beautiful ladies for taking the time out and having the courage to tell your stories, because one of the things that I'm realizing throughout the course of my recovery is I listen better when I can identify. When I feel like I'm not the only person that has been through something, because you couldn't tell me I was the worst addict that there ever was. But at the same time, I was the most honest addict that there ever was. You know what I mean? I want to go into the bridges I burned and tell them, but it's me, like, you know what I mean? But behind the scenes, I'll steal your stuff and help you look for it and give you half of it back just to secure your next lick or your next come up. You know what I'm saying? So it's like these character defects they take time to heal from. Now, real quick, I feel it's only fair for me to answer those very same questions. So before I get to some statistics and some facts, what led to my drug usage was self-acceptance. If I want to peel the layers of that onion back, it was self-acceptance. Of course, there are some borderline things that led to the road to drugs. There were some attractions, there were some, some glittery things. But the bottom line, after I've done some work on myself and I've worked some steps into a program, that I won't mention in this format because the program I work is based on attraction rather than promotion, so I don't necessarily publicize it. I will at the end. Um, but I've worked on myself and I've done some work, and that work has shown me that I've never really found out who I was. You know, um, growing up, my mother, she my two of my brothers was raised in the hood. By the time I came along, my mom was like, "I'm tired of it." She moved me out to the suburbs. She became a sheriff's officer. I grew around a lot. I grew up around Caucasian people, so I was never. I just did not fit in when I was with African Americans. Why you talk like that? Why you talk white? When I was with white people, they just called me all types of names and things like that. So I had a really just an identity crisis, and wanting to fit in. And that just intensified when I started smoking marijuana. From smoking marijuana, I went through a divorce with my ex-wife, and I have a 21-year-old son today. Um, the reasoning for divorce is irrelevant. The fact of the matter is she was like, "I'm tired, I'm done. Bye, Felicia," And from that, I started going to clubs. I started sniffing cocaine. Um, I worked as a New Jersey state certified paramedic for years. I lived in a beautiful home. Drugs just led me down a dark, 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 dark hole. And I kind of got sick and tired of being sick and tired. I mean, I have a whole story that I could tell you, but we just don't have the time. So if I'm all over the place, I apologize. The bottom line is that I can identify. We all come from different walks of life. We all have different upbringings, but the bottom line is we all share the same last name, and that's Addict. And because of that, I love you all. And that identification is very important for us to share so that addict that's alone, that feels like they're alone, they can tap into that and realize, oh, well, you know what? She been through that. What was her name? Dora. Dora been through that. Oh, Regina been through that. But look at Regina now. You know what I'm saying? Look at Milan now. Like, they can see that and it gives them hope. Hope. And that's what's most important is for them to have hope. I didn't have hope when I was addicted. Some of the things that led me to come to try recovery was jail. I wasn't built for it. I wasn't built for it. I remember sitting in the corner talking about this all happened so quickly. Like, what is happening? I went through a drug program called the Matrix program in Jacksonville, Florida, and it's like a TC program where it's like a rehab within jail. They do counseling, and you open up. And a lot of people that were in that program used to tell me, Kaleem, you're going to go back out there and use because you're taking it too seriously. But I took it seriously because I was tired. I was tired. I could not stay clean no matter what. And I'm realizing now that I couldn't stay clean because I had nothing behind me to solidify my moving forward. I didn't do anything to stay clean. Now today, I do things to stay clean. I go to meetings. I talk to other addicts in recovery. I do things so that when I look back, I can say, I did this. I didn't want to do this for nothing. So it solidifies my going forward. I appreciate you guys for taking your time. So Nicole says, such a needed conversation. Thank you for this. You're very welcome. It's our pleasure. I'm sure I can speak on this whole panel. For this whole panel and say that it is our pleasure to actually be here before you today. So I did create a slideshow with just some facts, if you will. Just gonna wait for that screen share to. Okay, so Dr. Nora, who is the director of the NIDA, said that in all my years as a physician, I have never, ever met an addicted person who wanted to be an addict. So that stuck out to me because I didn't choose to be an addict. I didn't wake up in the morning and say, yeah, I want to smoke so much drugs that it takes my house away and makes me sleep on the street. I want to walk around smelling like I got an onion in a headlock. I want to be a panhandler. Like, I didn't wake up and make this decision. It took over me. Studies are showing that addiction is actually an illness. It's actually an illness. It's not a choice. We made one choice that one time. After that, our choices were taken away from us. If we can move on. So I got some facts for y'all. This is the truth about addiction. Following this slide, we'll get into some things. So you can go ahead. You can turn onto that slide. And I just thought it was very important for us to just to kind of look at this man smoking, because a lot of people don't realize that a lot of addictions stem from cigarette smoking. A lot of addictions go hand in hand with cigarette smoking. I know after I took me a hit, I wanted a cigarette, you know, and cigarettes was my first true addiction. If I want to think about it, I'm talking right now while this slide is on to give those an opportunity to actually read the slide. I think I've given you guys enough time to kind of read it, but I really want to get into the meat of what this PowerPoint presentation is about. So we can move on. This is one where, you know, we all talk, you know, nobody identifies this as a drug, but I'm 40 years old and I just realized that it truly is a gateway drug. Marijuana is a gateway drug. And I'll be honest with you, if I knew without a shadow of a doubt that me smoking a J, right, and I'm just talking about an addict named Kaleem, if I knew that I could smoke a J and it wouldn't lead me to the back of the 7-Eleven with a crack pipe in my mouth, I would smoke me a J right now because I love this drug. But I also know that I don't ever have to get high again, even when I want to. Even when I want to. And my mind, my addiction, my disease tells me, you can smoke a J. You know what I mean? You ain't never got evicted from smoking a J. You ain't never, you know, lost everything from smoking a J. But you know what? At the bottom, at the tip of that roach on that J is a piece of crack. So I stay away from it. We can move on. So there's two stigmas that the world, the general, the largest consensus of the world focus in on, and one of those is addiction and the other is sexual orientation. On this one I will read. Overcoming substance use disorders within the LGBT community can be especially challenging since there are two stigmas involved: addiction and sexual orientation. These individuals often struggle with rejection, isolation, low self-esteem, and physical threats of violence. These discriminatory factors often lead many people to rely on unhealthy coping mechanisms such as drugs and alcohol to cover up their internal pain. And briefly escape from their harsh reality. The internalized stigma and homophobia that this community is faced with are also underlying reasons why many choose not to seek substance use disorder treatment. They're just going to shun me. They're going to shun me because I'm transgender. They're going to shun me because, you know, I'm 6'5", but I sound like a 6-year-old girl. You know, it's tough. It's tough. So I just wanted to point that out. If we could move on. So if we could blow this up a little bit. I just told y'all I'm 40 years old now. I ain't got no contacts and my glasses is in the car. So that must be as big as it gets. So if you guys can see this better than I can, it's just breaking down the statistics regarding like people that use intravenous drugs versus other drugs. It gives you a breakdown of actually just like the risk factors for HIV and AIDS. And if you look, a large percentage of that is male-to-male contact. There's a small portion that's from injection of drugs, and the largest consensus of HIV dealing with drug abuse is actually in women that use drugs. So we can go ahead and move on. I didn't realize this PowerPoint was going to be so hard to see. So this, according to 2018, this was the latest chart that I could find, but the number of people in the US who used selected illegal drugs in 2018. So the largest group of people that used drugs, that drug of choice was actually marijuana. And if you notice, marijuana is listed under a drug, even though a lot of places are trying to legalize it because it does have some very therapeutic values within it. But an addict like me can't. I just can't. I'm not going to fool myself. I'll go out there and get a card for me to smoke marijuana, but they don't got no crack cards. So I might as well just go ahead on, leave it alone, and let's move on. So 71,999 people died from drug overdoses last year. And 12 of those were my friends. So it's real. A lot of people, and people that are in recovery are at a higher risk of ODing, believe it or not, because we stay clean for a year, 2, 3, 4, and we go back out there trying to use the same amount of drugs that we did before we got clean, but we forgot that we had to build up a tolerance for that. So a lot of people are going back out there and they're dying by alarming numbers, dying because they just feel like they can handle it, but a lot has changed. If we could move on. So this talks about the opioid-involved deaths and related harms. Deaths involving synthetic opioids and what does it say? With 2091 and 2018. So this one, I actually think that I put in here by mistake because I didn't even know what it said. But it's still very important, a very important piece of information. So those people that use opioids, and we'll talk about that later on in the presentation, in the PowerPoint.
I
There
can read it
where our
for you.
overdoses are. There are where people are dying. Those intravenous drug users, the people that are using heroin and fentanyl and things of that nature, it's dangerous. It's dangerous. I don't get high anymore because I'm afraid. That's the number one reason why I don't get high anymore. It's because I'm afraid to. And that's a healthy fear for us to have. We could go to the next one. So, what are some of the causes of substance abuse? For many people, drug use begins from undiagnosed mental health issues. Sometimes this undiagnosed or misdiagnosed issue evolves into mild mental health issues such as depression, anxiety. It could also mean that more serious mental health challenges are a factor within people who are struggling from mental health conditions. Sometimes the use of drugs is like a self-medicating. It's self-medication is exactly what it is. Unfortunately, doing this, it can lead to a substance abuse, use, or disorder. So next slide. I was just about to say what this slide says. So some of the things that cause drug addiction are like past unresolved traumas. The science community, so like those guys that sit in the office and they just play with numbers and they look at censuses and figure stuff out. They said that a link among family members who abuse a substance, the likelihood of you developing a substance use disorder is greater if you have a family member or have family members who do. However, they haven't discovered what gene, if any, is the cause of the connection. One theory is that having a family member who abuses drugs predisposes you to have a similar problem in the future. Another theory is that their environment also shapes people. If drug use is a common occurrence in your environment growing up, then you may end up using drugs too. Next. I know I had an uncle that got high. I've never really seen it. I don't know if I can attribute that to that, but I mean, what scientists say. So, talking more about past unresolved traumas. Another reason people may self medicate is that they are dealing with past unresolved traumas. If you've been through a traumatic incident in your past and never dealt with it, you may turn to drugs or alcohol to numb the memories and the pain. Childhood abuse and neglect may cause trauma to a person that will affect them in the future. That's self explanatory. So, another um, potential cause of a drug dependency is prescription drugs. You know, you start taking a prescription drug because you hurt your back, and now all of a sudden you're addicted to it. You know, when delving into the cause of substance abuse, it's critical to look at how legal prescription drugs play a part too. When your doctor prescribes a narcotic medication for pain, there is a chance that you could become addicted to them. First, you may develop a tolerance to those for the dose that you're on. As the doses increase, your body develops a dependence on them. If you try to stop taking them abruptly, you'll experience uncomfortable symptoms. You know, that's also self-explanatory. I know a lot of my friends. I'm sorry. Um, I know a lot of my friends in recovery actually um, started from using prescription drugs. I have a friend now that actually just relapsed because he was on pain management or whatever it is that the doctors call it, where they get an allotted amount of medications. Started buying them on the streets. He couldn't get them on the streets, so we started using cocaine. So that I've seen firsthand. If we can move to the next slide. Sexual behavior, the premise of that's all right. Now we can kind of bring this all in. Drug abuse is associated with sexual risk behaviors that are often linked to illnesses or infections. Those under the influence of drugs may experience an increased sex drive and are more likely to engage in high-risk sexual behaviors, such as unprotected sex or sex with multiple partners. Some drug users may be so desperate to satisfy their addiction that they resort to selling sex to pay for drugs, exposing themselves to greater risks of contracting a sexual transmitted disease. Doing something strange for some change, stuff like that. So, risky drug abuse behavior. So, substance abuse is linked to risky behaviors with a high potential of disease contraction, such as next. Okay, so like sharing needles. Um, I was not an IV drug user. I didn't like needles. Um, but I will say, yet, because I don't ever want to disqualify myself, because when I smoked weed, I used to say, man, this is all I'm doing. Like them people that sniff that white stuff, man, they crazy. I'll never do that. Then I started sniffing, and when I sniff, I seen somebody smoking crack, I would say, man, I ain't never smoking that, and before you knew it, I'm sitting behind a dumpster smoking a rock that I went half with somebody on, you know? So sharing needles foster possible exposure to infected blood or body fluids. And it's one of the most common ways that an individual does develop the disease such as HIV or hepatitis. Can we blow that up some, please? Reusing drug paraphernalia. Recycling drug paraphernalia increases the risk of disease among drug users. Reusing contaminated water and drug solutions, bottle caps or spoons used to melt substance, or small pieces of cotton or cigarette ends to filter particles out of the drug are all examples of drug paraphernalia recycling. That can result in disease contraction as well. And another big risky drug abuse behavior is sexual behavior. Drug abuse is associated with sexual risk behaviors that are often linked to illness and infections. Those under the influence of drugs may experience an increased sex drive and are more likely to engage in high risk sexual behaviors, such as unprotected sex or sex with multiple partners. Some drug users may be so desperate to satisfy their addiction that they resort to sexually transmitted disease. Next. Common diseases that may stem from drug abuse include AIDS or HIV, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, other STDs, tuberculosis, and a host of others. Next. So we just talked about a little bit about this, like injection drug abuse. Injection drug users have one of the highest risks of acquiring an infectious disease. The most common disease attributed to injection drug use include hepatitis B and C and HIV/AIDS. Hepatitis B and C injection drug users have the highest rate of contracting hepatitis C out of any risk group. Statistically, every IDU infected with hepatitis C will infect another 20 people. That's a lot. Injection drug users remain one of the biggest factors in the increasing case of hepatitis C. IDUs, which is an injection drug abuser, also have high rates of hepatitis B. In 2010, IDUs had a hepatitis B injection rate of 20%. This statistic is particularly disheartening as there is a vaccine that can prevent hepatitis B. So that's talking about like intravenous drug users is what IDU is, and IDA is injection drug abuse. Just wanted to clarify. Next. So stats for IDUs with hepatitis C. And the reason why I decided to spend so much time with hepatitis C is because it's something that I never really took seriously until I noticed a lot of addicts actually suffered from it. A lot of my friends that I've come in contact with, it's been part of their story. So I thought that it might be something that I needed to maybe spread awareness about. 40% of IDUs contract hepatitis C within 2 years of their first injection. 30 to 80% of IDUs contract hepatitis C within 5 years of their first injection. And 53% of the 17,000 new cases of hepatitis C in 2010 were among IDUs. That's a lot. Next. HIV/AIDS. Each year, approximately 10% of new HIV diagnoses are the result of injection drug use. Of the new HIV cases caused by injection drug use in 2010, about 62% were men and 38% were women. Since the beginning, the HIV/AIDS epidemic, injection drug use has been responsible for 1/3 of adults and adolescent AIDS cases in the country. Through 2012, 28% of those who died from AIDS since the beginning of the HIV/AIDS epidemic could be attributed to the injection of drug use. Additionally, another 8% of those who died from AIDS since the initial outbreak can be attributed to male-to-male sexual contact with an IDU. Next. Non-injection drug users. So we talked a lot about, intravenous drug users, but, there are some risks for those people that don't necessarily shoot up their drug of choice. Non-injection drug users also face increased risks of contracting HIV, hepatitis B and C, and other infectious diseases. While non-injection drug users may not face added risks of blood or bodily fluid exchange as a result of needle sharing or injection practices, they are still just as likely as IDUs to engage in high-risk sexual and other behaviors with a high potential for disease exposure. According to the National Institute of Drug Abuse, some studies, I'm sorry, I need my glasses. Some studies show that non-injection drug users contract HIV at similar rates to IDUs, showing that the prevalence of sexual transmission of HIV among drug users. Non-injection drug users also face increased risks of tuberculosis and have 2 to 6 times the chance of contracting the disease as non-drug users. Furthermore, non-injection drug users are twice as likely to develop tuberculosis IDUs. Next. So, substance abuses with high-risk diseases include, but are not limited to, we all know what this is, so I'm not going to go ahead and read it, but heroin is very high up there, if not one of the most riskiest when dealing with bloodborne pathogens. Next. Steroids, believe it or not, other popular injectable drugs are steroids. Steroid users share the same disease risks as other IDUs. Additionally, steroid use can lead to endocarditis, a dangerous inflammation of the inner lining of the heart, and a number of different viral infection and infection sites. Next. Methamphetamines. Next.
Excuse
Okay.
me, Colleen. Colleen?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, wrap it up, honey.
I'm trying.
Go ahead and wrap it up. If people need to ask questions, we have like 3 minutes. Come on.
Oh, yeah. Okay, next. Can you just go ahead and skip to the resources? Next. There you go, right there. So 211, if you needed help, you could just dial 211. And I'm actually gonna save this to my page. So if you guys need to see the list of this resources, look on my page to see it. Colleen Gibson. But I do want to open up the floor for questions. Thank you guys for your time. Let's hit it. So John says, so needed workshop. I agree, John. Don. I agree, Don. I definitely agree with you.
I just wanted to kind of. Oh, go ahead. You can read that question.
So Zarian Newbill, is this through the abuse of using marijuana that it became a drug? Because many people with severe seizures use medical marijuana to subside their seizures. So it's not the drug that makes you an addict. It has nothing to do with the drug. The drugs are just a symptom of a disease. Some people I have family members that can smoke weed and use other recreational drugs and not lose everything. So I wouldn't necessarily say that, but I can't smoke medical marijuana because I know what it would lead to. Not saying that someone else couldn't.
I just kind of wanted to kind of put it in here somewhere. I mean, I know the conversation we've had tonight was a very explicit conversation, but it's definitely things that we definitely needed to talk about. We need to get more comfortable talking about it. However, we do understand that some of these may be triggering to people who are in addiction. So if you are feeling some type of way tonight after this conversation, or after viewing this conversation, please feel free to reach out to one of your support team, someone that's in your support circle. Reach out to a brother, sister, friend, or cousin, someone just to talk to them about what you're feeling after viewing this this conversation, because we're not here to trigger anyone's active addiction. We're just here to share most needed information about cause that being active addiction could cause when it comes to STIs and STDs.
Absolutely, Angela. Thank you for saying that, and that's true. And if I would have thought that more through, I wouldn't have posted those explicit pictures as well, because I didn't even think about that.
And I wanted to interject, because we're wrapping this up now. I want to thank each and every one of you for being so transparent tonight and telling your truths and sharing your story. I appreciate you so much, Colleen. It's unfortunate that we didn't have, more time, because I'm sure that there was so much more that we can share. So what I'm going to do is make sure we are back together again on another forum where we may have a little bit more time. But I really and truly appreciate you. I love each and every one of you. And thank you all for watching. If you have questions, you all know us individually. You can go in our inbox. You can ask us and we will respond. Love you.